You are good to go. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Is that my cue to start? Okay. Thanks very much. My name is Corrine Geiger, and I am the immediate past president for the Residential Real Estate Council for New Jersey, Delaware. And I'm very happy to be here today to sponsor your workshop. I appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about RRC, or Residential Real Estate Council. We've been participating in this conference actually for the last few years, and we've had the pleasure of meeting many of you at our booth. There are so many benefits to becoming a member of the Real Estate Council. I've only a short time today to tell you about some of them, but I will direct you to our website, crs.com, and there you will find everything you need to know about the Residential Real Estate Council. RRC is the leading education, membership, and networking organization for residential realtors. We currently have over 28,000 members dedicated to training and empowering ethical, efficient, and successful real estate professionals. The CRS designation is the most recognized designation and prestigious designation in our industry. Only the top realtors nationwide have achieved the CRS designation, about 3%. There are many benefits of becoming a member of RRC, and even more benefits of obtaining your CRS designation. One of the biggest benefits is being able to place and receive referrals through our network like CRS, Find a CRS, to find quality, like-minded agents to refer business to. You can join RRC as a member now for $195 per year and then work toward your CRS designation. There are two different pathways to work towards your designation. One has to do with more transactions and one has to do with more time in the business. Today, I'm able to offer a discount. So for new members, brand new members, and also for members that have had maybe were members and their time lapsed, maybe you haven't been a member for 1 or 2 years and you're coming back, we are offering a 50% discount. And if you want to write this down, it's NJDERRC21. That's the code. When you go in and click join now, you put that code in, and then you can take advantage of that 50% off for the first year. Some of the benefits of becoming a member: education, of course, receiving discounts, one-on-one personal and virtual classes, self-paced learning, and webinars and recordings. In addition, we have 12 new complimentary webinars each year through our free webinar library. News and information: the Council's award-winning magazine, The Residential Specialist, RRC Bottom Line, which is a digital newsletter with relevant information, and a free subscription to Inman Select News, which is $199 value. Networking events: access to over 40 local and state RRC entity members to connect with other successful real estate agents across the country. Through networking, attending educational events, getting involved through RRC volunteer opportunities, committees, and leadership roles. And discounts: RRC vendor marketplace to find discounts for our members on a wide variety of products and services for your business. We've also partnered with several companies, USI Affinity, who is a national leader in insurance benefits, to give you some competitively priced insurance. Partnering with TAG, Transamerica, to help members invest in their future and in their retirement. And we have many other benefits. So I encourage you to visit the website, crs.com. If you have any questions at all, just feel free to give me a call. My cell number is 609-618-1669. And I thank you for taking the time to listen to me today, and I wish you much success in your real estate careers, and I hope you get a ton of valuable information from this webinar today, or this workshop, sorry. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. discount code again. Okay. The discount code is NJDERRC21. Okay. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great workshop.
Thanks, Corinne.
Thank you, Corinne.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining this session. We are so thrilled to be here, and we've got a very fast-paced, info-packed workshop this afternoon about positioning yourself. So we'll make the most of the time here. We are here from Gillespie Hall. We are a marketing, public relations, strategic communications firm. We have worked in the real estate industry for quite some time and have some really wonderful stories from the coalface. And we're looking forward to sharing what's going on in 2021 here today. Whoops. I will be running the screen, and let's jump in. There we go.
So, hello everybody. I echo Clara's sentiments. I'm Bridget Pavard and a partner at the firm as well. And what has just happened? Our workshop today is going to be looking at how we can help you adjust to the critical shifts in the marketing trends. And when we say marketing, that incorporates communication as well, the marketing trends in Delaware. It has been so alarming and we've all had to pivot so rapidly.
We're your hosts today. As Bridget mentioned, we're partners at Gillespie Hall, and my background is in behaviorism. So that talks about the understanding of our audiences. How we communicate with them has everything to do with where they are in the moment, where they're consuming information, how they make decisions. We have to fully understand that if we can communicate effectively. And Bridget's background is in PR.
I've been handling communication for about 3,000 years, and it's been a wonderful career. I do teach at the Wharton Business School, so we're very up to date in the latest trends and the communication trajectories and strategies, which we'll be sharing with you today.
Our agenda this afternoon. We take a situational analysis just to look at what we have all been through and how it's influencing where we are. We look at our audiences in 2021 and 2022, what's left of this year, and how they are positioned to receive our messages. And then we talk about how you can stand out in this landscape that we live in this moment. We'll talk about using DAR and the issues that concern your industry to connect with the people who run your business and who fuel you. We talk about networking and what that looks like in this new world, and message calibration and how to phrase things and how to package the messages that are important and that will help you get ahead in your business. And then we'll do a quick wrap with some nice actionable takeaways that you can leave with this afternoon.
So underscoring our presentation this afternoon really is personal branding, making sure that you are doing everything you can to be distinctive and to stand out. And I'm sure some of the tactics that we'll share with you today will be, you'll be implementing tomorrow. That's our hope.
So let's set the scene. What has just happened? We are still coming through this pandemic, and that has impacted the way that people respond to messaging. So our attention spans are much shorter. It takes a lot more to hook someone to pay attention. The prices, and especially in this industry, prices have increased. And we've seen just the quick pace. I mean, 10, 20, 30 offers on a home in a single day when it first goes up for sale. And I mean, it's not even on the market anymore when the sun goes down. That means we're looking at a low inventory, very little stock. That raises competition for all of you. Buyers are not acting entirely rationally now. They're driven by fear. Many of them they're just bursting out of the places where they used to live, and they're looking for something very new. And when there's so much uncertainty in the world, a lot of people are looking for a change that they can control. So we're reacting to that. There's escalated competition as a result of that inventory shortage. And there's a shortage of workforce housing. This is something that I know you all are very sensitive to, and many adjacent industries are also paying attention to. But the affordability of places to live and the availability of homes where working families, the people who power our society, can actually afford to live is really important. And then transfer taxes continue to be an issue. So this is all part of the landscape that we're operating in.
You specifically are challenged by this shrinking inventory, bidding wars, inflated prices, tough competition. We know that our audiences and our public are a lot more acerbic, a lot more curt. A lot of the common courtesies of communication have fallen away. So it can be a very, very tough environment. People who normally are only interested in a luxury market are now trying to get into a more conservative, modest market. So we really are in a position of change. You are, your industry is, which is a great opportunity for you to really, really ground yourself and pay attention to who you are as a brand. So the market madness is fascinating. I mean, looking at Wilmington, which is obviously still great, offers a great deal, from 84,000 to 108,000 in a year. I mean, that's up $24,000. And then, of course, we have Fenwick in Sussex County, homes going from 980,000 to 1.2 million, up 260,000. That is phenomenal growth, and that is market madness.
I'm seeing a comment that someone can't see or hear anything. Is anyone else having the same issue before we go on? You can put it in the chat if so. Okay, thank you. Now, here we have the top 10 zip codes in Delaware by the percentage increase in average home sales. 28%, almost 29% in Wilmington is a huge increase. And obviously this is impacting you all pretty significantly. That is followed closely by a 26% increase in Fenwick. And the relatively low prices in Wilmington are one of the reasons that we see that huge percentage jump in Wilmington. In Fenwick, that's still a $260,000 increase from the average home price. So this is really, really going to impact people, families, home buyers in the long run, and of course you.
Well, it's astounding that out of the top 10, 8 are in Sussex County. Mm-hmm. That is really interesting.
So let's look at our audiences in 2021. Who is listening? Who are we talking to? Our audiences are self-segregating, so they're gravitating more toward people who already agree with them, with information that they already believe. They care less about facts. They don't care about being lied to, actually, which is a huge change from what we've seen in the past. So they're just looking basically to be validated. They're skeptical of authority. They don't trust people in power who they see speaking to them and trying to share information. We're seeing one of the biggest trust gaps ever. There's also no such thing as a news cycle. So there's no more waiting for the morning paper to come out for a story to break. It could be 24/7. A big story could come out at 2 o'clock in the morning. And that's a very volatile environment that we're facing.
And I think one of the things that's really important to understand is that it's not one message fits all anymore. Audiences have changed, and we've seen this. Our job as professional communicators is that we make sure that whatever our clients need to say, we are delivering these calibrated messages to all the audience segments across the board. And this applies to you as well, whether you're buying, selling, promoting yourselves. Just understand that there is enormous audience segmentation.
We're also facing the fact that misinformation is everywhere. And in fact, there are companies, organizations, and individuals who are paying for misinformation to spread. So standing out with a true message, being able to correct facts, being trusted as someone who has the real information is a real opportunity for each of you. There's also a significant special interest bias throughout the media. So more and more so, we don't have any unbiased media. Most outlets are being funded by someone with a specific agenda. So it's very difficult to be completely nonpartisan or to be featured in a story where there's no kind of angle. attention spans are short. You have just probably 2 or 3 seconds even to catch someone's attention and get them to read more. So that means we have to front load the most interesting information right up top. There's no oversight on social, so there's not really any management by the platforms. For example, Facebook, Twitter, they're having a real challenge managing misinformation and making sure that what is published and shared and what spreads on their sites are actually true. So that puts a lot of responsibility on the rest of us, all of us day-to-day users, and particularly business owners who are sharing information to validate and make sure that what you're sharing is 100% verifiable. Media and even social networks, people who are sharing information are looking for clickbait. So that's just a sensationalist headline. And sometimes that's all it takes. It's very easy for a story to even not have anything to do with what the headline is. And people are looking for inconsistencies, and they're very ready to jump up and call someone out who is not sharing verifiable information. So it's important to be consistent. Stick to your key message always and make sure that what your public is hearing from you is the same always.
It's important to understand who we're talking to. So if you have the opportunity to attend a networking function, or you're invited by some media to share about clean water initiatives, always drill down and say, well, who am I talking to? What do they need to hear? What is the message, my message? And how do we know they're going to be listening? What are my metrics? So there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's no such thing as off the record. So it's really, really critical that you tune and fine-tune, retune your message for a specific audience.
So in this messy and complicated landscape, how do you stand out? How do you differentiate yourself when there's little stock, competition is high, audiences are volatile?
Well, we've got some great tools of exposure, which we're going to work through with you very quickly. We're going to talk about media relations. We're going to be talking about community outreach and visibility, and that is really, really very powerful. Word of mouth, which of course helps with reputation building, social media presence. We've got a big section on that because that's still how most of us do our reputation management. And of course, email marketing, which has just grown in population and is a wonderful opportunity for everybody. So being a great communicator in 2022, what does that actually mean? I love that. I love this visual. It reminds me of what it's like working with some very influential leaders. Right, good communicators. What is expected of you as a good communicator? And this shouldn't be a show. This should be something that you genuinely feel you're authentic and you're natural, irrespective of where you are. The same person always shows up. You're flexible and adaptable. So if somebody's coming up with an opinion or a viewpoint that doesn't align with yours, you're a good listener. You're not necessarily going to push back because it's not really that helpful sometimes. You tell the truth. You avoid spin. You speak to and not at your audiences and people who you're working with. You forge a connection with each person in their space, and that's a skill. And I think realtors generally do a fabulous job of that. You're good self-editors. You know how to simplify your message. Because remember, people need to know what they need to know, not what you need to know. And that's very important. You're compelling when you need to be. And sometimes when we say compelling, you actually tell a story or share an anecdote, which actually pushes your story through. You know your key message. Why are you here? What are you hoping to achieve today? And you're a resource for the public and the media. You're not a roadblock. You answer questions. You are transparent. You are confident in your opinions and in your experiences. Go ahead, Clara.
Okay. You should take, as a good communicator, as taking the responsibility to position your business within this landscape. Take every opportunity, every public engagement to elevate your brand and contribute to getting you ahead. getting ahead of framing the story, taking the opportunity. If there's ever an opportunity for you to be an expert in an area, or something happens and you have an update, positive or negative, it's important for you to be the first one out of the gate. So get ahead. Whether you have all the details or not, just be the first one to tell the story. You have opportunities to lobby, to share your knowledge, expertise, bolster your position as a leader in your field. You are creating a reputation for yourself of being a resource and being someone who has relevant and interesting and even entertaining information to share. You're there to win support for a specific direction that you're taking, or for the service or the value that you offer to the marketplace. What is it that sets you apart? And make sure that the type of families or businesses or the people that you want to serve understand what it is that makes you the right choice. You are out there communicating to create awareness, stimulate interest, create curiosity, spark questions in people's minds so that they want to engage with you. A lot of what communication is now, whether we are on social media and talking to 260 or 1,000 people, everyone who's seeing those messages wants to feel that you're talking only to them. So we're kind of simulating or emulating this very personal one-on-one conversation. And that's a great sort of litmus test when we ask those questions about who our audiences are. Who are we talking to, and what's going to make them feel like you're talking just to me? You're there communicating to build loyalty and trust, to amplify your key message. And keep in mind, always mitigating risk. So that means keeping your answers short, because long answers are boring, and they also open you up to contradicting yourself or saying something that could get you into hot water unintentionally. It's very easy, the more someone says, for the media to pick something out and make it into a headline. And go ahead, Bridget.
I'm going to give you an example of getting ahead and talking very specifically about your brand. So we had a property involved in the Brandywine River flooding, and there were several homes that had sold in the area. It's a very exclusive gated community, and it was shocking. And you know that morning, I was contacted immediately by the person who sold me the house, who's a realtor. Our neighbor who had just moved in from DC, her realtor was there helping her mop up. It was spectacular for your industry. It was just everybody felt this feeling of being significant and being supported. It was just, and it wasn't done strategically. It was done out of genuine warmth. But in terms of the impact on your industry as realtors, it was just spectacular. It was just such a great example of getting ahead, being invested.
And the other thing I love about that example and that story is that genuinity, that authenticity of that interaction. So it's also important when we say tell the truth, no spin. The other piece of that is actually be yourself and look for opportunities that are true to you to connect with the communities that you serve. So that's a great example for that reason too.
Before you start a deliberate communication, and this is really very key, what do you want your audiences to know? What do you want them to feel? And what do you want them to do? Three litmus tests. And if you're going to a networking event, or you're doing a presentation, or you're soliciting a new client, remember these 3 issues, because that really, if you need to be able to answer those to move forward.
So let's dive into media relations. The first thing to remember always, if there's media in the room, if you're breathing the same air, if you're on the same block as media, assume that you are being recorded or videoed. They may say sometimes it's off the record, but always assume that there's someone around with a camera rolling. And we do a lot of crisis communications as well, and you wouldn't believe the number of times that there was some kind of illicit recording that creates an issue.
Delaware Media, they're fabulous. We've worked with them for a long, long time. But, they have a job to do. This is a conversation. This is also your opportunity to get your message out. And it's really, really important that you are extremely disciplined. And what often happens is that people have an interview, even if maybe you're in the WHYY studio and you're being interviewed about clean water or about Delaware's transfer tax. The interview's over and you sit back and you go, wow, that was tough. you're still being recorded. Trust me. And that, wow, that was tough, ends up being a meme, or, it finds itself on social media. So be extremely expedient and cautious and disciplined with those interactions.
And the main reason that this is an issue is because clickbait is so popular. So most of the time, the media are playing by the rules as long as you're working with business media, and you have rights. So know this before you go into an interview. Request the questions in advance. You won't always get them, but you can always ask. And the more you know ahead of time, the better you'll be able to actually answer the questions, perform, make sure that you're speaking to the real issue. Offer to fact check the story, which is different from asking to review it. That will annoy most journalists. They don't take kindly to outside editors, but they do want to get the facts right for the most part. You can tape an interview, and we always recommend to do this with permission. Let the other person know that you're recording. It may bother them, but it can be a way to protect yourself. And limit the time of the interview, always. Keep it pretty short. 15-20 minutes is usually plenty to get your story across, and let the interviewer know ahead of time.
So the media fall into different categories, and I think we know this. We've got our business media, who tend to be very traditional, and for the record, my background is in journalism. We have our mainstream media. We've got our networks, we've got the news journal, we've got our local community-based media, which of course now has merged with the news journal. But one thing we do have that is really, really important is we have bloggers, junk scientists, and Insta pundits. Now, our bloggers are really growing in influence, and some of them have more influence than some of our national media in certain topics. So if you have the opportunity to work with, or you're invited by a blogger, and you ask some questions, that is it's a huge honor, and just treat that as you would any other interview. There's some really good bloggers in Delaware, really good. And they're doing an outstanding job of talking about family life and cost of living. And they're very invested in your industry, in your profession. So we call them in the industry thinly credentialed journalists, but they have a lot of influence. And if you actually follow a blog, make yourself available for an interview, offer to write a column. It's a really great way to strengthen your brand. And of course, then there's social media, which is an entirely separate animal. We call it a beast. I think Mark Zuckerberg's probably calling it a beast right now too.
Looking at the Delaware media landscape, this is just a snapshot. And within that category of Insta pundits, there are even very isolated community influencers who may fall into that category, who have a local following, even on a neighborhood or a city or a county level. So all of those kinds of people may also fall into the category. But here we have our business media publications that come out in print or are online, or have both, many of them. We've got radio here. We have a little bit of broadcast and TV. We've got the Dialogue, for example, which is sponsored by the Catholic Diocese in Wilmington. So all of these, we have a multilingual. All of these are, they form our media landscape and may be relevant to your audiences. So it's important to be aware.
Right. Well, getting ahead of the media and influencer engagement. So when you engage, or when you work with the media, when they actually want to call you or you set up an appointment, see this interaction as an opportunity. And there's nothing to be nervous about. This really is an opportunity for you. Don't download your knowledge. Prioritize it. If you are talking about something very specific, make sure that you've got your 5 key talking points. A media interview is not a conversation as much as a highly focused communication aimed at your audiences. So when you're sitting talking to, let's say, Amy Cherry at WDEL, don't just see Amy. See Amy's vast audience. She's got a massive audience. So you're not just talking to her. You're talking to all of her audiences. She is the conduit. So be very cognizant of that. And also use the language that is going to obviously is going to be relatable for your audiences. So we avoid any kind of jargon whatsoever. Just make it conversational.
In the public eye, it's important for DAR to be seen as consistent as a group, and all of you as members. So that means work as a team. Be aware of what your colleagues are saying. Tell the truth always. And if you're making a statement about an issue, that means it also is aligning with DAR's position on this. You're a representative and an ambassador of the organization. So there needs to be alignment there, and the public needs to see that. And that said, you still have your own personality and your own distinguishing factors. But then you're proving what you're saying with action. So we know actions speak louder than words. That's why when we talk about being authentic and being involved in the community, that's one of the ways you do that. People are really seeing you act out what you're saying. Address media assertions strategically. So we get into what this looks like specifically, but choose your battles. It doesn't mean every single issue needs to be responded to. And, if there are facts in an article, there are some things that really should be corrected because they could result in wrong information being spread. And some things, you may not want to take on a misspelling of a street name or something like that. And just remember you're maintaining a relationship with journalists as well. Listen to your stakeholders. What do they want? What do they need? What opportunities are there for you to solve a problem for them and create change that's going to make an impact and kind of stick in their memory? Manage for tomorrow. We're looking ahead. We're always anticipating what could happen 6 months, a year, 2 years from now, and putting pieces in place that, for example, building relationships, creating goodwill that's going to benefit you no matter what happens in the future. Community engagement, this is really all about relationships. We're looking for those opportunities for you to connect with a cause that is important to you, which is also going to make an impression on the people that you interact with. And they'll see you making a change. And always remain calm, patient, good-natured. You may not always get that same courtesy from the public, but your job is to rise above and stay consistent, stay courteous, and be remembered for that.
So as we work through our tools of exposure, community outreach and visibility is key. And I think for the most part, you're all very strategic about doing this because we have, this is a large organization and very well run, but being visible and talking about what you do, I think is really, really important. I mean, most people think, a real estate agent just aligns themselves with the property and then, gets a 3 or 4 or 7% commission. And that's not the case at all. And the more you talk about what you do and the more you create opportunities to talk about what you do, the stronger and more valuable you make yourselves and your profession. So volunteer at large organizations and wear branded swag. And people ask questions. If you're not a member of a service club, join one. Be very active in your chamber. The chamber is just, particularly the chambers we have in Delaware they're nuggets. They're wonderful. Attend local events, art shows, church fairs, fundraisers. Get involved in committees. Get on a board. Those are really great visibility opportunities.
And talking about correcting misperceptions about real estate agents, you're not just a real estate agent, you're a realtor. So we'll get into a little bit later how to use that as a talking point and educate people and create a conversation around that. These are great opportunities when you're out in the public to do that. Oops.
And the ways that you can actually become more visible is, there is such a dearth of good speakers, engaging speakers. Go to a workshop, learn to become a speaker and market yourself. Create those opportunities, whether you're talking to high schools about career options or the local Rotary Club. It's exciting and wonderful. And all you need are 3 or 4 narratives and some exciting things that have happened to you, and you've got a good presentation. Give back, and one of the things that are really, really important is financial literacy. You can't buy a house unless you understand your finances, and we know that there's a big disconnect between that. So there's a great opportunity. Are you multilingual? Use it. Let's see you speaking English. Obviously American English, Portuguese, Spanish, Haitian, whatever it is, use it. It's a great way to distinguish yourself.
And these are also great ways also to become known as a resource. So when someone from the media may happen to go to this church that you've presented at about financial literacy, and if they have a question about something that you spoke about, you're going to be the first person they call.
And of course, all these community outreach and visibilities opportunities you can showcase on your social media profiles very discreetly, but it's fun images and, learn more about this organization, click here, that sort of thing. It's a great opportunity.
And we're talking about all these different tools of exposure. One thing that's really important too is that you may not be able to do all of them. If you're a one-person show, for example, you have limited time and resources and you've got to find time to show properties. But do as many of them as you can and be as consistent as you can, because every opportunity that you have to connect will create another place where someone might come into contact with you. And you need to connect with each person about 9 to 13 times for them to pay attention. So if they go to a workshop and they hear you speak, and then someone in their Facebook network happens to share one of your posts, those are the ways that they're going to start to recognize your name. And when they need something, they have something kind of reminding them that, oh, I know someone who does that. I know someone who can help me with this.
It sounds overwhelming to say you need around 15 brand touch points for somebody to remember you or recall you. But if you think about the activities that you do day to day, that's actually not that overwhelming at all.
Mm-hmm. And that could be 15 different social media posts or 14 posts and a presentation. So it's the mix that works best for you. Our next tool of exposure is word of mouth. And this in most industries, is the most powerful. And it continues to be. Part of social media's power too is that it has been this tool to amplify word of mouth. So when someone is sharing a positive experience, for example, rather than talking to the 3 people at their dinner table or at happy hour, they're talking to 260 people. So that remains, but there's a power in that the kind of water cooler conversation that can't really be replaced. So how do you leverage that word of mouth? Talk up your successes. Share stories that are worth passing along. So that can be amazing stories, amazing facts, stories.
Ask questions. Always a great way to engage by asking questions.
Mm-hmm. And that gets people thinking, and they remember the thoughts that they had when they were talking to you. Educational content or teaching people something that follows right along with being a resource. Educational, so when someone learns something, they're very likely to repeat that to people they know. And entertaining or interesting kind of fun facts sometimes, or a funny story, those kinds of things are very, very shareable.
Information is always power. Information is equity, and people use that to leverage. And this is a great clip of how it works. I mean, we talk about the water cooler effects. Well, now that we're all coming back to work, thank goodness, we're getting more of that. But taking conversations offline, they start online, and we're taking them offline. There's a whole power and energy to that as well.
Mm-hmm. We've got some great personal examples, like we'll go out for happy hour and everyone happens to have seen the same post, and then there we are for 25 minutes talking about something that we saw on social media, even though none of us liked it. So, or we purchase, we listen to a podcast and we hear an ad for an interesting snack, and then the next time we all get together, there that snack is on the table and we're talking about the podcast where we heard it. So those are the kinds of some of the ways that word of mouth can be so powerful. The other thing that we're going to talk a little bit more about later in this session is how DAR issues can help you fill out those educational shareable tidbits. So some issues that impact people in your community: workforce housing, transfer tax, clean water. If you have the ability to vary in few words and really simplify what these issues are and what they mean to your audiences, those are likely to be repeated, and your name is going to come along with that in those conversations.
Remember this gadget? Oh, I do miss it. Well, telephones still work because that's really one-on-one and a personal. And we always encourage our clients, make a call. Instead of texting, make the call and leave a voicemail message. And it really does build trust, and it certainly is a very valuable tool of connection. It's just, my children look at me and go, what is that?
And we're starved now. We've been with our videos off on screen for years. And we always keep our videos on because we miss that face-to-face connection and hearing people's voices. And there's something that you can never translate into a text message or an email, which is that tone of voice and the warmth and maybe a little bit of laughter when it's appropriate. Those kinds of really human moments and features have so much power.
So we're going to have to speed up here. Tools of exposure, social media. Can't live with it, can't live without it. I'm sure everybody who's participating in this particular workshop has at least 2 social media profiles. So the tools for small business are ubiquitous. We have so many. And, even though people aren't that active on Pinterest, it is still used exponentially as a resource. We have built pages and pages for clients going back, Clara, 5 years that are still used extensively. So none of these can be diminished at all.
And each of these is most appealing to a particular audience. So if you're trying to reach, for example, women from 35 to 55, Pinterest is probably a pretty good place for you to be.
Very.
If your target audience is under 35, probably focus on Instagram. If you're featuring professionals, it's LinkedIn. So there are lots of questions to ask here.
And then, it's really sound bites of news, then we'd use Twitter.
Right. Other communication platforms, these you may recognize as more private one-on-one communication. And while these are harder to measure, we are seeing them as incredibly powerful communication tools because this is where the most meaningful conversation is happening. So what will happen oftentimes is someone takes a post that's on Facebook and shares it privately via Messenger, or even takes a picture of something they saw on their screen via Snapchat. And that one-on-one conversation is between people who trust each other and are sharing information.
So the landscape for social media is phenomenal. We've got around 7.8 billion population, 5.2 billion mobile users, 4.6 billion internet users, and 4.1 billion social media users. And that was last year. So we are really, this is just the way we live. Our social media platforms currently dominating are Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
And we do anticipate, because of everything that's happening with Facebook now, that Facebook and Instagram's position may start to shift. But for now, their market penetration is just so high. More people use those platforms than use any other communication tools. So it's still important to be aware of what's happening there.
62% of the adults in the United States got their news from social media. That is phenomenal.
Staggering, actually. So what kinds of things are people paying attention to?
Get it. Show them, girl. Yeah. Boom, boom, bow, boom, 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 bow.
Is actually kind of unbelievable. This is what
Staggering.
People pay attention to.
And I know Claire and I are a different generation, but honestly, when you see that these things they have people mesmerized. We have to understand our audiences. We cannot diminish this. I laughed when I saw this. I laughed out loud. I couldn't believe I was laughing out loud. But we have to recognize that platforms like TikTok and Reels and these short videos people are actually manufacturing these at a ridiculous rate just to get the laughs, just to get the engagement.
For millions and millions and millions of views.
And you can too. So what's changed in the last year? Well, divisiveness in tone. We've seen it. We've seen it across the board. People are, anger, fear. There's some ugliness. There's a lot of NIMBY, not in my backyard. There's a sort of a lack of community. We saw a hint of it come back with the 9/11 anniversary, the 20th anniversary. We felt a gentler side of our community, but we have fake news, we have audience segmentation. People are not open to views that don't reflect their own, and that goes across the board. There's been a phenomenal increase in online purchasing, as we see with Jeff Bezos' status. Of course, TikTok has just surged, and image filters and enhancers have been very common, but this is going to be one of the first things that I think Instagram are going to have to lose, because this is, if you've been following what's happening with Instagram and Facebook, these filters have really been creating issues for for our younger generation.
Mm-hmm. And it's important in this, with this kind of a landscape, when these are the things that are going on, you can see why an entertaining video is going to capture people's attention, because they just want to break from all that toxicity. So it's important too for you to model, understand that you're modeling as business owners, you're modeling the kind of behavior that is going to move your business forward, but move also your community forward. And this is the power that you have.
But one of the things we all have in common is humor. We all react to something funny or something joyous, or, and that's something I think we have to embrace and understand and always be aware of.
Mm-hmm. So why social media is worth it? These are some of the things that can happen as a result of strategic and powerful social media use. You can ignite conversations, and these are some of the things that you can do also. These are both actions and outcomes. Start conversations, ask those questions, get people talking, or at least thinking about something that's relevant to your business and to your community. Increase your exposure. You're getting more well-known. You're creating a familiarity with your face, your business, the work you do.
And if you sponsor a little league team and they have a brilliant season or even a dismal season, talk about it. Share some of those news. Let's see a picture of your sponsored T-shirt. I mean, bring us into the community. Use those tools.
And all of this really is about growing your business. But some of the other ways that you do that is by affirming your professional ability or your knowledge or your expertise. So share things that you know that might be valuable to other people. You're establishing an immediate audience. So what tends to happen when you're building this community is there are a few people who are really committed. This may be a group of 20, 30, 50 people, or even fewer than that. And those are your most loyal followers. They're going to like most of your posts. They are also going to talk about you and share your posts. And then you have this other group that you don't see interacting as often, but they're still engaged. They're still seeing your posts in their newsfeed. They still may be visiting your page. And all of those people have committed to staying connected with you and learning from you and taking what you're offering of value, taking it out to their communities.
And underscoring all of this is that home ownership is an American dream. If you're not going to be selling because you're scaling down, you're going to be buying because you're scaling up. Whatever it is, home ownership is really at the core of who we are as a society. And you may not be, as you know, the need may not be imminent, but if somebody's thinking of buying a home in 3 or 4 years, you want them to think about you.
Right. Now, you're also getting access to influencers who will help to spread your message, and these influencers have power in your community. There's a group of people who are following them and listening to what they're saying and sharing. And you can leverage DAR topics to grow your profile and talk about issues that people may not think about every day that are impacting their lives. Now, it's also important to be responsible and to be aware of how easy it is to make or break a reputation with a single post. So the stakes are pretty high.
Social media is content that misses its mark. I always imagine putting something, on a billboard, and that's really a good litmus test. But things can be misunderstood. A really good example here, if you think about Burger King, they had this great, funny, fabulous social media campaign. What they were doing, they had started a new funding system to encourage more women to become chefs. And their tag was, "Women belong in the kitchen." Well, there was an absolute outrage. I mean, it was just havoc. It wreaked havoc. The intentions were good. It just missed the mark. So be very, very careful. Even if you are doing some ad and promotional work, look at it from all sides. We live in a very divisive society, and what offends me may not offend you, but so just be very sensitive to that. Mm-hmm. I've got myself into a lot of hot water.
Social media is an invaluable communication tool because it is a way to scale that personal connection that we were talking about earlier, the humanity. It delivers immediate and unfiltered feedback, which is the way conversations happen in real life. And that's the power of this tool. It gives access to you from the people that you serve.
There's a couple of platforms that have emerged over the last couple of years, and one of them that I think is really lovely is I Love Lewis. And I'm not a beachy person, but I love this post. Every day I look at it, there's something wonderful. Somebody's posting something beautiful, a bird, the beach, a sunrise, sunset. Absolutely beautiful. And now I've started to notice the names and I'm seeing who's participating and I'm thinking, oh, interesting. So there's a curiosity that is emerging. So this is something that you could start. You could, if you are particularly well known in a specific area, you could be sharing information about the fauna and the flora. Somebody posted a fox asleep on a beach. I think it was yesterday or the day before. That was spectacular. It was National Geographic. I know I shared it, up the wazoo. So these are the opportunities we're talking about.
Now, what are the top social media trends today? Audiences are more socially conscious. They're looking for social messages. They're looking for a specific story or engagement or opportunity that speaks to something larger. So this is a great place for you to plug in DAR issues that are impacting them. There's shifting responsibility for managing misinformation. The platforms really are reluctant to get into this because they're balancing free speech with the potential damage that rumors and wrong information can cause. So there's some shifting toward users to verify and to make sure that what you're reading and sharing is true. This is going to continue to be pretty volatile for the next probably several years. Organic engagement, meaning likes, comments, shares on posts that you haven't paid to boost or advertise, those numbers are all going down. Organic engagement is decreasing, and that trend will likely continue. And social media will spur conversations offline. This is when we're talking about adding fuel for word of mouth, this is what we're talking about. A single post can start 15 different conversations that happen over the next week, and it makes people come back and look for something else to talk about at their next dinner party. And this is also going to increase. The trends we're looking at for 2022, SEO, search engine optimization, that applies to our images, our language. We need to think about how people are going to be searching for the type of information that we can offer. And this is going to be, it used to be keyword loading. So people would just publish a website with real estate, homes, home buying, selling, and it wouldn't actually have any meaning. Now we're getting more and more toward language that just sounds like people talking in normal everyday. And that's the direction search engine optimization is going to go. So another reason to keep it conversational. Hashtags are ways to organize conversations about a similar topic. So someone who is interested in clean water, you may be able to reach advocates, someone who works with Delaware Nature Society, for example, and may be looking for a home. If they see you posting and advocating about clean water and how important it is for communities, they may be following that hashtag and they can immediately see that this is something that you share and have in common.
And if you use a hashtag that seems very popular, please check it out first, because some hashtags have been going for many years and they mean something very different from what you would think. It's quite an interesting. Start your own hashtag. That's also always a good idea.
COVID-19 content is going to continue to be relevant at least probably for another year. So communities now are looking more for cleanliness. They want to know what your policies are and what your personal preferences are. Are there contactless options? And they also want to see a commitment to community. So those are some of the trends that are coming out of this pandemic. Nostalgia messaging became way more popular in 2020. There's an 88% increase in people looking at remember when kind of posts. That's music, restaurants, landmarks that aren't there anymore have turned into something else. That we expect to continue because that's that positive kind of feel-good content that everyone has gravitated towards when in the midst of uncertainty. Engagement metrics will continue to decrease, and TikTok and Reels are changing the way we communicate. It's those very short tidbits video. It's there's sometimes eye-to-eye connection. There's a rhythm to it, and that is both a response and is influencing what people are looking for on social. So something very digestible, quick, that makes a fast impact and makes them feel good or makes them feel something. Best practices.
You go ahead.
Okay. Best practices for social media for business. It's best to have a profile specifically for your business. So if my name is Clara Matucci, but my business is called Clara Matucci Real Estate, I would want to have that real estate page live. And on that page, I'm going to be publishing business-related information. I may every once in a while choose to share. Maybe I take my dog to a showing. I might post something like that, but it really is all business. I'm not sharing pictures of my kids. I'm not sharing, that more personal content. Meanwhile, I'm posting the contact details, the website, where people can go to find more information, and how to get in contact with me. That's the call to action. That's what I want people to do. I'm building my business community, my followers. I might start by seeding with my friends and family, my neighbors, people who I've worked with, partners or colleagues. I might start with them.
Certainly previous clients, when you've had successful transactions, that absolutely invite them to follow you. What I've seen realtors do, a lot of their favorite cookie recipe, just small bits of information that actually are useful, but they're engaging.
Mm-hmm. And post regularly. Some people like to use their personal profile, and many, especially individual professionals, have started already to build their community there. So if you do that, we have some specific guidelines here. If you're using personal Facebook and Instagram profiles for work, be cognizant of what you're putting out there from a personal standpoint. Make sure that the image that you're projecting is professional. And be very cautious about protecting your family, especially children. So while that may be relevant to your business, maybe take photos from the back, or just show, one of those little cars that they're driving outside, but not necessarily have them in it. That's just something to be cognizant of. And add warmth. These are your personal connections, the things that you care about, a beautiful sunset. All of these are examples of community and what makes a community that's relevant to your business and are still personal. So we're being authentic here, and also reminding everybody what it is that you do and what value you're offering them.
There's some great fillers for both business and personal social media pages. Old cars, my first car, my last car, my newest car, pets, school uniforms that we used to wear, hemlines going up and down. Some are nostalgic, some are funny, hairstyles. All of these fun things can interrupt a business flow and just add some humanity. And it's you're adding personality. Don't shy away from that.
Mm-hmm. And home-related or property-related pieces like exterior care or interior decorating.
How to winterize your home. Yep. Become a resource, become helpful.
Yep. Monitor comments on personal Facebook and Instagram. When you're mixing those two worlds, just be careful that you know what everyone else is posting about you. Be aware when there are cameras out and you're at a personal event. We recommend changing settings to approve all photo and post tags, so nothing is going out without you knowing. That can be connected back to your business. Create domain excellence. So talk about your region, share good news stories, share things that are happening, opportunities to go out or experience culture. You become then a resource also about not only your immediate work, but your community as a whole. And post relevant content often, regularly, consistently. If you can't manage posting every single day, try to keep it consistent so you're posting about every other day or 3 times a week so that people know what to expect, and then they know when to come to you to look for something new. On social media, you can create awareness, educate, inform, share useful knowledge, build your reputation, influence the community, and position DAR issues, and we're just about there to talking about that, and become a respectable resource on real estate on the county level, on the neighborhood level, on the community level, and throughout the state. So a quick checklist if you're looking for where to start. Choose one platform. It's a good place to start. Build a strong, active profile. Facebook is probably the best place to go. If you're in commercial, LinkedIn is the best starting point. Create content about issues that are relevant to your public. Remember who your audiences are and what they care about. Share relatable and authentic images. Most of the time, people on social media are not looking necessarily for very polished or high production value. They want to see something that they can relate to. Highlight other local businesses. Create connections, and you can make this mutually beneficial relationships with other people who serve the same community and other businesses. And use strategic hashtags and tags to make those connections and join conversations about things that are relevant to you.
So this is an exciting. It's almost come back in fashion. I mean, email marketing was very, very, very popular about 7 or 8 years ago, and we've actually Claire and her team have just finished a huge survey, and email marketing was just by far the most popular way that people like to communicate. So over 75% of people over 50 prefer email to text and telephone calls. Email marketing is focused. It's purposeful. It's a great way to solicit support for an issue. There's so many wonderful email platforms, e-news platforms that can be designed and branded exactly to reflect you. And they are great for delivering leads. They are lead generating tools.
We see most clicks on filling out a form or actually purchasing something. Most of them are coming from email, even if it's been the result of a series of social media posts and a personal interaction. When someone actually makes a decision, it's usually in their email inbox.
Well, that's profound. Yep.
Keys to successful email messaging. First, the hook. How do you get people to read? Most of us get so many emails, so the subject line it's important to get that right. So what makes people open emails? Subject lines that are useful or create curiosity or intrigue. So here are some examples. We look at utility versus curiosity. Sometimes there's humor that's involved here, something that is really going to catch the person's eye that you're emailing. So another place where it's important to know who's on your list. An example of a utility email subject line: 3 solutions to the real estate tax hike. And that 3 being not capitalized, that's intentional. Sometimes some unconventional but not careless punctuation or grammar can actually catch someone's eye in a different way. And curiosity: had a weird idea that might work. And depending on what kind of thing it is you're offering, what the body of the email, the contents of the email should align with the subject line. But those are the kinds of things when someone is in exactly the right frame of mind to make a certain decision, an email that creates a question can really do the trick. And then what's inside the email message? We're going back to that same question. What does your audience care about? So you're providing value here. An email message should be digestible. Remember, it's about 65% of people that read email mostly on their mobile devices. So keep it short, digestible, scrollable, pretty visual. We're not looking for dissertations, just a little tidbit where I can learn something. And if I want to know more, give me some place to go.
The things that, if you're selling your house, cut your grass often. Or just sold this, just sold this place, amazing, whatever. Just little bits of information. It's astounding. I'm always astounded what people do read.
Mm-hmm. And even including a question, if there's not an immediate call to action or something you want people to do right in this moment, always include your website link or a way to contact you. But you can leave them with a question to think about so that they're not just immediately moving on from that email, but there's something that's kind of sticking with them that they'll remember. Now, the beauty of e-news, we'll see some examples here, but you can create your own publication.
So e-news is a little different from an email message. E-news is almost is an electronic newsletter, and they should really be quite short, just below the fold. So we don't want reams and reams because then it's really an e-magazine. But these can be created really entirely around who you are, your business, your visuals, your color palette. And you've got MailChimp and MyEmma and all sorts of platforms, which are extremely good. Constant Contact is a very popular one with your industry as well. But these are extremely helpful and very powerful tools.
And to the extent that you can mix an e-newsletter with personal email messages, there's a nice interplay there where someone feels like they're getting a personal attention when they have an email message, and then they're also getting your newsletter, and they're putting those two things together, and they feel like they have a relationship, and you want to share with them.
And you've got to be provocative in an e-news. Mm-hmm. 4 things you didn't know about Hokassen, mm-hmm. or
right.
Why Fenwick is so popular.
So here's some examples from the real estate industry. Sold, sold, sold. Look at that. I'm curious. I'm scrolling down. And then on the right, we have something from a Coldwell Banker, and there's snapshot data of something interesting about the industry, something that I can learn, and I'm probably going to bring this up at a dinner party this weekend. You can see the impact of design as well here. So we're creating familiarity. Having a consistent banner will help people remember what it is and get them in the right mindset, what it is they're reading. And it also creates that emotional response. So depending on what your goal is and what it is that what kind of information you're going to share, that's the type of image, and that's how you want to lay this out.
Think of it as it really is the connective tissue. I mean, when we look at the image, I feel as if I belong. This is somebody's connecting with me. We've got something in common. I belong. You are my people. And that's the kind of response you get when you use a banner image that's spot on. And play with that.
So now that we've talked about the methods of communication, how can we use DAR and your membership in DAR as a touch point and as something valuable that you have to share? Part of what we're talking about here is your identity. Who are you? What sets you apart? And how does your membership here set you apart from the rest of your industry? Starting with what is DAR? There's not a lot of understanding or familiarity with what a realtor even is and what's the difference. So what sets you apart? Competency. I'm a member of an organization that is interested in advocacy. We're committed to education. I'm always learning something new and keeping up to date with the latest and greatest in my industry. I have committed to fairness, to integrity, and I adhere to a very specific moral code in my business relationships. And these are not things that the public knows. And so a great place to start is, what is DAR? What is a realtor? What is it that I actually do? And what community am I a part of? What that's valuable to you?
And it would the way you'd frame that is, did you know? Did you know? It would be very engaging.
Conversational ways to say this.
You're movers and shakers, you're influencers and change agents. You're the voice of real estate in Delaware. And there's a lot of you. I mean, 4,000 residential and commercial realtors as members of DAR. That's phenomenal. That's quite a body. And that immediately positions you as a body of influence. I want to hear what you have to say. I would want to bring you into the conversation. If I'm having a conversation at the state chamber about Delaware in the next 5 to 10 years, I want at least 5 people from DAR there. I mean, that's who you are, and that's how important you are. Your opinion matters.
And with that kind of membership, imagine if there's an issue that's important to you in your business, imagine if just half or a quarter of you are all talking about the same issue on the same position. That's power.
That is power. So obviously, as members of Delaware, as of DAR, you're talking to buyers, sellers, and the public. You're talking to influencers and business leaders. You're talking to legislators, and of course, the media and bloggers. When you are talking as DAR, it's absolutely critical that your personal opinion or whatever's coming out of your mouth fully aligns with the position that DAR takes. You have very specific issues with the transfer tax, clean water, workforce housing, landlord rights, etc. Those messages should all align. It would be extremely embarrassing to the organization if your opinion that you were sharing deviated from what DAR stands for. So you have to be very familiar with the mission and vision of your organization if you're going to represent it.
So some examples of what you might say about DAR to these audiences. We're a community of engaged citizens. We're invested in the growth and prosperity of all Delawareans. And this is the intro to a conversation, so they'll have follow-up questions. And here's a sample social media post. I'm so proud to be a member of DAR. Did you know? There's where that did you know comes in. The term realtor means competency, fairness, high integrity, adherence to a moral conduct in business relationships. And then here's your call to action. Learn more from DAR. How can you be a great DAR ambassador? And this is going to benefit you and your career and your business as well. Talking about the issues that matter to DAR, to realtors, to the state of housing, property, and real estate in the state and in the region. Some of the ways you can do that are to submit a letter to the editor, post on social media, publish an article. Those types of commentary are going to position you as a resource. And these are some issues that really do impact our communities here in the state.
And that ambassadorship refers to obviously any organization that you're invested in. I mean, you could be on the board, for example, of the American Lung Association. These same rules of engagement would apply in terms of being an ambassador. And I think that's very, very important. You have so much power at your fingertips.
Mm-hmm. And there's a power also in being an ambassador for multiple organizations because it shows humanity and connectivity, and that it makes
influence.
You relatable and influence. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So diving into a few issues that we can use to connect with your communities. Do you want to take this, Bridget?
Well, 2.5% Delaware at transfer tax, at the highest in the United States, is just, I mean, it's an outrage. Nobody's going to embrace this and say, well, good for Delaware. It's and the fact that this is on your agenda, obviously we're all very keen to see some change, but this is a huge, huge issue, and it benefits everyone. The fact that you are representing us and trying to get this lowered, this impacts the greatest issue here. Of course, is that young people who are looking at buying a home are actually looking at areas immediately outside of Delaware. We are losing home buyers to other states because of this transfer tax. That's nuts. So there's so many ways we can talk about this, but it is a very, very big issue, and we're delighted that you've taken it on. Thank you.
And when you start out by saying the highest, people are going to have questions to follow that. What does this mean? What does that mean for me? I'm concerned about this. Tell me more.
How did it happen? Right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Another major issue, workforce housing. This is sometimes talked about as affordable housing, and there are so many challenges and factors that influence why there's such a shortage, but people need homes, and the people who make our community thrive. This is a quote from a developer in Sussex County, which is, as we've seen earlier, the most fast-growing in home prices, in property development. There's just a lot of development going on down there, and there's a community that is growing and burgeoning. It's very vibrant. So for teachers, police, first responders, nurses, childcare providers, those people that really keep our society moving and our communities thriving, need a place to live. So what's stopping them?
This gives you a great opportunity to talk about workforce housing, because why should those people who are key to our communities have to commute, right? That just doesn't make any sense. So this is so conversational and so powerful. And there are a lot of very key influencers who are waking up going, yeah, this has got to change. We've got to change. So align yourself with those influencers.
Right. And even issues that aren't directly related to DAR are still going to impact you. So if recreational cannabis becomes legal in Delaware, there's going to be a whole property market that rises up around that. So what kind of preparation can you do? How is this going to impact your business to be able to anticipate? For example, title companies won't deal with cannabis companies. So your lawyer is going to have to make sure the titles are clean. What kind of restrictions are there on location, on where a cannabis business can be located? What are some of the nuances of property sales and renting, and all of those kinds of issues are going to impact you. So some bills to pay attention to that may become relevant. SB 90, Senate Bill 90, the Delaware Fair Housing Act and Residential Landlord-Tenant Code may be revised to repeal exceptions to discrimination based on the source of income. This is going to impact you. The Delaware Marijuana Control Act is a new regulation and taxation that we've just talked about, how that will impact property. Senior Real Property Tax Credit, anything that impacts the finances of potential property owners or current property owners is going to impact you. House Bill 113, the forthwith summons relating to emergency relief and talking about where that applies, where it's available, and HB 205, the EARNS program, expanding access for retirement and necessary saving. Really anything that impacts the personal finances or corporate finances is going to have some kind of impact on you. So to be aware of all of these things. You may not need to have an official statement or position, but just to know what's out there and what may come up in conversation can be really helpful. And be aware of misconceptions. So some of the things people think about DAR, if they know about you at all, most of the time you have the opportunity to set the stage. So who are we? What is it that I'm bringing to the table as a member of this organization? And those who know may think that DAR only cares about selling properties, sellers' rights, landlords' rights, that they don't care about buyers and tenants. But the reality is DAR is advocating what's best for communities. So this is an opportunity for you to correct a misperception and have a conversation and change somebody's perspective. Another one that we hear is the partisan nature of the PAC. And really, it's not partisan. It's one of the most bipartisan, in fact, in the country. So here's another opportunity for you to enhance your position by sharing the true information.
So where do these conversations happen? Networking in a virtual world. I certainly hope this is coming to an end, but I think more and more organizations are seeing the value of actually being able to have a networking event, save a lot of money, and still have that connectivity. So unfortunately, I think this is going to be ongoing. The important thing is to always remain energized and upbeat. What we see a lot, and we've got examples coming down, is that people eventually withdraw. They forget they're even on a screen, and they become invisible very quickly. So if you're going to be network in a virtual world, participate, send in session notes, ask questions, position the camera in such a way that you are there, you are filling the screen, you are present, remain energized and upbeat. We've seen people fall asleep in meetings and all sorts of really fun things. It's just is what it is. If you have 6 back-to-back meetings and our client falls asleep and it's 4:15 and it's his 5th meeting of the day, we understand that. So, but be aware. I think because you're in the business, you're in the people business, there is an expectation that you will always be your energy will be a little higher and you will always be very present. So participate as much as possible in these events and say yes. Overcoming Zoom gloom. So the position and posture is everything. So the image on the left, we cannot tell you how many meetings we have where we're seeing only half a face. And what happens is the candidate actually sees a full face on their screen. So invariably what we do is we just take an image and we send it to them and say, by the way, this is what we're seeing. Sit up. Be very, very aware. Sit up. Engage your core, be present.
And make as much eye contact as possible.
Yes, this medium is not going away. Zoom mistakes, they're delightful, but this was one of my favorite. Very high-profile lawyer, Ron Ponton, couldn't figure out how to turn off his filter. He was using his assistant's computer for an important legal meeting. So his entire image on Zoom was this little kitty cat. It was just ridiculously funny. And they were talking about some major issues. It was only resolved once he was off, but it is very funny. And of course, we all remember the next one. I'm sure you all remember when this poor man was interviewed at the BBC, how shocked we all were that these children came in and then his poor wife came in trying to get rid of them. And of course now, I think a year and a half later, we've all seen this. We've seen dogs and cats. We've seen people wearing shorts underneath their dress shirt, all sorts of things. So that has changed. However, I think we always have the responsibility to be well-groomed and present. Soft clothes are never okay for a Zoom meeting. It just shouldn't happen. And by soft clothes, we talk about leisure wear.
So we are hoping that we can get back to networking in person very soon. So say yes, go out. There's this new energy of being present in person. Some groups, chambers of commerce, Rotary clubs, Delaware Prosperity Partnership, the universities, faith-based organizations, all of these kinds of groups, special interest organizations, they're all really want to bring people back together.
And they've started.
They've started.
And when you go to these events, set yourself a goal. It will give, I am going to meet 5 new people, not just get 5 business cards. I'm actually going to meet and get to know 5 new people. And I'm going to ask them questions about themselves. I'm going to be a profoundly good listener. And I think when you do that, you've actually got a mission and you've got a purpose. Otherwise, you're going around holding a drink thinking, oh my goodness, who else am I going to speak to? It's very difficult to insert yourself into a conversation. But actually, that's part of your job. And how do you do that?
And most people are uncomfortable with that. So having strategies
certainly does help. And, start a conversation that leads to a collaboration. And that really is we've got clients who signed us 2 years after we met them at a networking event. It took a while, but it was worth every bit of effort. Ask questions. What do you think about Delaware's transfer tax? Do you live locally? Have you been impacted by the housing market? A question is inherently interactive and it provokes a response. And of course, the facts must be on your side. If you're going to be talking about something like Delaware transfer tax, you can talk about some of the issues that have resulted because of the 2.5% transfer tax and what you are hoping as part of DAR to resolve. So just have those questions ready and be ready to, put yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone. We understand that, but it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. And these are great examples because they're related to your industry, but they're not directly sales related. So people are going to feel invited into a real conversation and that you actually care about their opinion. And that's really important in making an impression. Talking about sharing facts, there are impactful ways to do this. So some examples, we look at relative versus specific data. Sometimes you may want to round to have a particular impact, and sometimes you might want to use the actual number, depending on what you want to achieve. Here's a great example. If a community is 4 miles from the beach, you may want to say, and you're trying to get people interested in it, you may want to say, it's just a bike ride away, rather than that 4 miles is going to have a different association. Some people are going to think it's far, and some people think it's close.
And this is very helpful, particularly if you are going to, and we'd encourage you all to do this, you are going to dive into some e-news, creating an e-newsletter once a month. This kind of information channeling is important.
Mm-hmm. A couple of other examples that might be useful. You could say 12 minutes from the shopping center or 5 miles from the shopping center. Those are going to create different associations. So depending on what you want to communicate. When you're talking about traffic transfer tax, highest in the nation means something different than 2.5%. People will have questions. Is that high? Is that low? Give me some frame of reference here. If we're talking about housing availability, increased demand for single-family homes versus 0 homes available have 2 completely different emotional reactions from the person you're talking to. And even the language we use, affordable housing versus workforce housing. What are people going to associate depending on how you frame a particular data point?
So I'm sure many of you know Daniel Pink. He's just a fun writer, and he has always got some great ideas. He's a regular presenter at the Digital Summit we attend in Philadelphia. And he always says, get sassy, develop a rhyme from time to time. And when I showed this to some of my colleagues who are under 35, they're like, you've got to be kidding. And then we sat around and we played with this, and they loved it. And we even had some social media posts going out for clients with a rhyme. So Mr. Pink, he's not that wrong.
And it's just fun. It shakes things up a little bit. People don't expect this.
I know, get the facts on transfer tax. I mean, that could be your little banner, workforce housing for heroes, losers, zeros. Water that clean is Americans' dream. I mean, all of these things. You could even do a video. You could do TikTok. Just don't limit yourself. Be creative. Be brave. Be fun. But we can't take any credit for this. This was Daniel Pink. I love the idea.
And a few final words here. Concise messaging, keep it short. If we can say anything, this is the best way to keep people engaged, is to tell people only what they need to know, not everything you know. Part of what you are doing is setting them up to ask more questions. Position yourself as knowing more, but being focused enough and paying enough attention to them that you know what really matters. And then you're giving them an action. What to do next if you're interested? Where to go? What other questions can I ask? Keep it short.
And our very quick do's and don'ts. These, if you do nothing else, adhere to these. Do not participate publicly or online in issues that are highly politicized, divisive, or controversial, irrespective of where you stand on any of these issues. You will be exiting potential consumers, potential sellers and buyers by doing that. It is not worth it. Do not allow yourself to be videoed or photographed, smoking, drinking, or vaping. It can be used against you, and it's really got nothing to do with anybody else. Avoid using inappropriate language online. Do not post when emotional, tipsy, or up very late. Do not comment on clients, buyers, or sellers using text, email, or any other platform. Everything is retrievable. So even if you write a rude text about, there was that one example where a realtor had shown somebody the house, and I think he was European, and he smelled very different, and that ended up blowing up, etc. So be very careful. Be very careful. Don't post personal information about yourself or others. Dress casually when conducting business is the kiss of death. So always look the part. Dress for success. Do not argue with a media contact. If they say no to a story, or they don't want to run with an issue, or they're not going to participate in an event that you're running, just accept that. We don't want to make an enemy of media, and avoid lying, because that will come back and haunt you. If you make a mistake with data, that's understandable. We can talk about that. But if you actually lie when asked a question, that is very hard to justify. And this is all about risk mitigation and reputation management.
And very good do's, things that will help you advance. Always operate with integrity. And that just is a rule for every day. If you make a mistake, own it. Apologize. Things happen. And then what are you going to do moving forward to make sure this doesn't happen again? Be vigilant about protecting your reputation. And some of those don'ts will help to do this and manage the risk and avoid risky situations. Do create content that's interesting, shareable, educational, funny. As long as you know your audience and have an idea of what they're going to respond to, funny can be great. Make sure that when you speak on DAR issues, your comments are aligned so that you and your colleagues and your peers are all saying the same thing, and there's consistency there, there's clarity. Do foster a relationship with the media. Keep yourself on their radar as someone to go to if they have questions. Do dress well. Stand out. That's the best way to catch people's eye. Do control your message. Understand the difference between your opinion and a DAR position. And keep your message and what you're saying consistent so that your beliefs are also coming through clear and strong. And always be courteous and pleasant. You set the tone, you maintain the tone, and you will be remembered for that.
Not always easy.
Mm-hmm.
Successful people do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. And I certainly hope we've made some contribution towards that. I think that's a great and inspirational quote. Just continually making ourselves better.
Well, thank you all. We have our sources here so you can see where some of this comes from, and also how you can contact us via our socials or our website. We really appreciate you joining the session today, and if you have any questions, we can stick around for a little bit longer here. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.